September 13, 2022. The first confirmed employment of Iranian-made Shahed-136 drones against Ukrainian targets occurs near Kupiansk in Kharkiv Oblast. Ukrainian forces recovered debris from the distinctive Delta Wing loitering munition following the strike. The wreckage, examined by military analysts, confirms specifications matching the Iranian-produced kamikaze drone previously observed in Middle Eastern conflicts. This initial deployment introduces a weapon system that will fundamentally alter the tactical calculus of the aerial war. The Shahed-136, designated Garin 2 by Russian forces, represents a category of weapon distinct from traditional cruise missiles or military drones. The device functions as a one-way attack munition, essentially a powered glider carrying an explosive warhead to a predetermined target coordinate. The propulsion system, a simple piston engine similar to those used in ultralight aircraft, provides enough thrust to maintain flight for several hours depending on payload and flight profile. Navigation relies on GPS and inertial guidance without sophisticated terrain-following radar or autonomous target recognition. The weapon costs approximately $20,000 to $50,000 per unit based on open-source analysis of component costs and Iranian production figures, making it dramatically cheaper than conventional cruise missiles costing millions of dollars each. The September attacks employ small numbers of drones, typically 1 to 3 per mission, testing Ukrainian air defense responses and validating operational procedures. Ukrainian forces quickly adapt, with mobile air defense units and small arms successfully engaging several of the relatively slow-moving targets. The initial interception rate exceeds 70% according to Ukrainian Air Force reports. The drone's loud engine noise, audible from several kilometers distance, provides advanced warning enabling visual acquisition and engagement. Which factor was most critical here? A. Intelligence failure. B. Equipment limitations. C. Tactical surprise. October 2022 brings the tactical evolution. Russian forces increase the scale of Shahed employment from individual drones to coordinated waves. October 17th marks the first documented mass attack with over 20 drones launched against targets across southern and central Ukraine. The saturation approach immediately demonstrates the tactical logic. Ukrainian air defense systems, even when achieving high percentage intercepts, cannot engage every target when the total number exceeds available interceptors and engagement windows. The mathematics of attrition warfare favor the attacker when the cost-exchange ratio reaches extreme imbalance. A Shahed-136 costing perhaps $40,000 forces Ukrainian defenders to expend anti-aircraft missiles costing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, or to allow the drone to reach its target. The fall campaign establishes the operational pattern that will persist throughout the conflict. Russian forces launch Shahed waves primarily during nighttime hours, when visual acquisition becomes more difficult and defensive fighters cannot easily employ visual targeting. The drones approach at altitudes between 1,000 and 3,000 meters, below the optimal engagement envelope for many long-range air defense systems, but above the effective range of most short-range weapons. Flight paths exploit gaps in radar coverage created by terrain masking and the limitations of mobile radar systems. Ukrainian defenders face compounding challenges. The small radar cross-section of the Shahed-136, constructed primarily of composite materials and plastics, complicates detection at long ranges. The slow speed, approximately 180 kilometers per hour, falls below the minimum engagement speed for some air defense systems designed to target fast-moving aircraft and missiles. The low thermal signature from the piston engine reduces effectiveness of infrared-guided interceptors. Fighter aircraft, when available and when weather permits visual operations, prove among the most effective countermeasures. Ukrainian Su-27 and MiG-29 fighters employ cannon fire against the drones, achieving multiple documented kills. The cost-effectiveness of using a multi-million-dollar fighter burning expensive jet fuel to shoot down cheap drones remains questionable, but the tactical necessity drives the employment. Have you seen the satellite images from this strike? Check the sources linked in description. November 2022 demonstrates Russian refinement of swarm tactics. The attack on Kyiv on November 15th employs over 70 drones in waves timed to arrive at 30 to 60-minute intervals throughout the night. This temporal distribution maximizes stress on Ukrainian defenders by forcing sustained high-alert operations, preventing rest and resupply between waves. The sequential arrival also allows Russian planners to observe Ukrainian defensive responses to early waves and potentially adjust routing or timing for subsequent drones. Ukrainian air defense claims approximately 60 intercepts from the 70-plus drones launched. The 10 that penetrate defenses strike energy infrastructure and residential areas. The damage, while significant, represents a tactical question for both sides. For Russia, the 10 successful strikes demonstrate some capability to inflict damage despite robust defenses. For Ukraine, the 85% interception rate shows defensive effectiveness, but cannot prevent all damage when attack volumes reach extreme levels. The civilian impact of Shahed employment becomes increasingly evident through late 2022. The weapon's targeting accuracy, limited by GPS-only navigation and absence of terminal guidance, produces circular error probable measurements of tens of meters at best. This inherent inaccuracy strikes intended for military or infrastructure targets frequently impacts civilian structures. The distinctive engine sound creates widespread psychological effect as residents hear the approaching drones and await impact. Unable to predict the exact target, the winter campaign sees continued escalation of Shahed employment volume. Between November 2022 and February 2023, Ukrainian officials document over 600 Shahed launches. The sustained campaign demonstrates either substantial Iranian supply of complete systems or successful establishment of domestic Russian production capacity. Intelligence assessments from Western agencies suggest both factors contribute, with Iran providing initial batches and Russia establishing assembly facilities using imported components and domestically produced elements where feasible. December brings tactical innovations on both sides. Ukrainian forces deploy additional mobile air defense systems specifically configured for drone defense, including German-supplied Gepard self-propelled anti-aircraft guns. The Gepard, equipped with dual 35mm cannons and search radar optimized for low-altitude threats, proves highly effective against Shahed-136 targets. The relatively low cost of cannon ammunition compared to missiles improves the cost exchange ratio from Ukraine's perspective. Russian planners respond by increasing the complexity of attack packages. Rather than launching only Shaheds, Russian forces begin combining them with cruise missiles and occasionally ballistic missiles in the same strike packages. The mixed threat streams complicate Ukrainian defensive planning as different target types require different engagement approaches and systems. The high-value cruise missiles warrant expensive interceptors, while the cheaper Shaheds ideally receive lower-cost responses, but defenders must rapidly classify each target and assign appropriate countermeasures. Which system proves most effective in this conflict? A. Long-range missiles. B. Drone swarms. C. Combined operations. January 2023. Data from Ukrainian Air Force reveals the pattern clearly. During a single week of intensive operations, Russian forces launch 140 Shahed drones alongside 40 cruise missiles. Ukrainian defenses intercept 125 Shaheds and 32 cruise missiles. The numbers illustrate both the volume of threats and the effectiveness of layered defenses, but also highlight that perfect defense remains impossible. The 15 Shaheds and 8 cruise missiles that reach targets still cause significant damage. The production and supply chain question becomes central to understanding campaign sustainability. Each Shahed-136 destroyed represents a unit that must be replaced for Russian forces to maintain operational tempo. Iranian production capacity estimates vary, but most analyses suggest several hundred units per month maximum output. Russian domestic production, if fully established, potentially adds additional monthly capacity. Ukrainian defenders destroy drones at rates exceeding 100 per month during intensive periods, creating a production versus consumption race. The Spring 2023 campaign shows tactical adaptation continuing. Ukrainian forces deploy electronic warfare systems designed to disrupt GPS navigation signals. The effect on Shahed-136 performance becomes evident in strike patterns. Drones operating in areas with active electronic warfare jamming demonstrate degraded accuracy, with some units completely missing intended target areas. The Iranian navigation package, designed for GPS-permissive environments, lacks sophisticated jam-resistant features found in Western military navigation systems. Russian forces counter by launching drones along flight paths designed to minimize time spent in jammed areas, and potentially by improving guidance packages on newer production variants. Intelligence reporting suggests Russia received updated Shahed designs from Iran, incorporating lessons learned from Ukrainian operations. The enhanced versions reportedly include improved navigation resilience and possibly modified warheads optimized for specific target types. The summer 2023 period brings relative reduction in Shahed employment compared to the intensive winter campaign. Analysts assess multiple possible explanations. Stockpile depletion from months of high-tempo operations requires time to rebuild. Production bottlenecks or component shortages may limit Iranian supply. Russian forces may deliberately reduce usage to accumulate reserves for future intensive periods. Ukrainian defensive improvements may convince Russian planners that continued mass employment provides diminishing returns relative to costs. Does this pattern indicate a shift in Russian or Ukrainian strategy? Comment your analysis. September 2023 through January 2024 sees renewed Shahed campaign intensity. Russian forces again escalate to waves of 50 to 100 drones during major strikes. The pattern suggests deliberate campaign planning, with periods of intensive use alternating with lower activity phases. This operational rhythm potentially reflects production and delivery schedules from Iran combined with Russian strategic planning for maximum impact timing. The data reveals campaign effectiveness trends over time. Initial Shahed operations in fall 2022 achieve lower interception rates as Ukrainian defenses adjust to the new threat. By winter 2022, interception rates climb above 70% as defenders deploy optimized systems and procedures. Spring and summer 2023 see rates exceed 80%. The fall 2023 renewal shows rates returning to 75% range as Russian forces employ larger volumes and more complex tactics. If you follow verified military analysis, type verified. The cost analysis reveals the strategic calculation driving Russian employment decisions. Estimates suggest Russia has expended over 2,000 Shaheds through early 2024. At an average cost of $30,000 per unit, the total expenditure approaches $60 million. The damage inflicted includes destroyed energy infrastructure, damaged military facilities, and disrupted civilian services worth far more than the weapon's cost. From Russia's perspective, the cost-effectiveness remains favorable even with high interception rates. The Ukrainian defensive expenditure provides the counterpoint. Each Shahed intercepted by missile costs Ukraine significant money and depletes finite missile stocks that allies must replenish. The total cost of defending against 2,000 Shaheds likely exceeds $1 billion when including missiles, operating costs for systems and personnel, electronic warfare equipment, and opportunity costs of forces assigned to air defense rather than other missions. The asymmetric cost warfare advantage favors Russia in simple mathematical terms. The operational impact on both military forces demonstrates the weapon's strategic effect beyond immediate damage. Ukrainian air defense forces maintain continuous high-alert posture throughout Shahed campaign periods. This operational tempo creates fatigue, reduces readiness for other missions, and consumes resources. Russian forces benefit from forcing this defensive allocation even when individual strikes achieve limited physical damage. Ukrainian civilian morale effects remain difficult to quantify, but clearly factor into Russian planning. The psychological impact of hearing distinctive engine sounds followed by explosions affects population centers repeatedly targeted. The uncertainty about specific impact points creates widespread stress beyond those directly affected by strikes. Russian information operations amplify these effects through messaging, emphasizing defensive inadequacy and inevitability of continued attacks. The international dimension involves significant diplomatic efforts. Ukrainian officials repeatedly request additional air defense systems from Western partners specifically to counter the Shahed threat. Western nations respond with various systems, including German Gepards, Norwegian NASAMS, and American Avenger systems. The provision specifically targets drone defense capabilities rather than high-end systems designed for aircraft and cruise missiles. Iranian involvement generates diplomatic complications. Western nations impose additional sanctions on Iranian entities involved in drone production and transfer. Iran officially denies supplying weapons for use against Ukraine, despite overwhelming evidence from recovered debris, intelligence reporting, and Iranian domestic media coverage. The diplomatic fiction allows continued engagement on other issues while the weapons transfers proceed. What tactical adaptation should we watch for next? Share your thoughts. The tactical evolution continues into 2024. Ukrainian defenders demonstrate improved integration of multiple defensive layers. Long-range radars detect drone launches and approach patterns. Fighter aircraft intercept some targets at distance from defended areas. Mobile air defense systems engage others during approach. Electronic warfare degrades navigation for remaining threats. Machine gun positions and small arms provide last-ditch defense for critical facilities. The layered approach improves overall effectiveness, but cannot achieve perfect defense. Russian employment adapts with increased use of decoy drones to saturate defenses and reveal system positions. The decoys, potentially modified Shaheds with reduced or no explosive payload, force Ukrainian defenders to engage each target, potentially expending valuable interceptors on targets carrying minimal threat. The deception tactic proves difficult to counter, as defenders cannot risk assuming any given drone is a decoy. The production question remains central to future campaign assessments. Can Iran and Russia sustain production at rates matching Ukrainian defensive consumption? Intelligence assessments remain uncertain, given limited transparency in Iranian and Russian military production. Western sanctions targeting specific components attempt to disrupt supply chains, but effects remain difficult to measure. The strategic impact assessment shows clear Russian achievement of campaign objectives. Shahed employment forces Ukraine to allocate substantial resources to air defense, inflicts continuous infrastructure damage, creates civilian morale pressure, and demonstrates sustained strike capability despite Western military aid. The relatively low cost and apparently adequate supply make the weapon system a sustainable element of Russian strategy. Ukrainian success in achieving high interception rates prevents catastrophic outcomes and demonstrates defensive capability, but cannot eliminate the threat entirely. The ongoing challenge requires sustained Western support for air defense systems and munitions. The mathematical reality of defending against cheap swarming threats using expensive interceptors creates long-term sustainability questions that remain unresolved. The February 2024 operations continue established patterns. Large-scale Shahed waves attack energy infrastructure and military facilities. Ukrainian defenses intercept 70 to 85%, depending on specific attack parameters. The exchange continues with neither side achieving decisive advantage, but both accepting the operational reality of sustained campaign. The documentation provides clear data on tactical evolution. Early employment of individual or small groups of Shaheds, tests defenses, and validates procedures. Escalation to waves of 20 to 40 drones demonstrates saturation tactics. Further increase to 50 to 100 drone attacks maximizes defensive stress and ensures some penetration. Combination with cruise missiles and ballistic missiles complicates defensive planning. Integration of decoys adds deception element. The progression shows systematic learning and adaptation by Russian planners. Ukrainian defensive evolution demonstrates equal sophistication. Initial responses using available systems achieve moderate effectiveness. Deployment of specialized systems optimized for drone threats improves performance. Electronic warfare integration degrades drone navigation. Fighter employment adds flexible intercept capability. Layered integration of multiple system types maximizes overall effectiveness. The progression shows rapid learning cycle and effective adaptation to evolving threat. The campaign continues as documented analysis proceeds. New data emerges with each attack. Patterns refine as additional incidents provide statistical validation. The Shahed drone warfare evolution from September 2022 to present represents one of the most significant tactical developments of the conflict. Real weapons, real evolution, real ongoing operations. Subscribe to Skyfall Warfare for documented analysis of real aerial warfare. Sources in description.